Hello and welcome back to the Stronghold. I'm the Magi, and well, we've reached that point in the year where I am usually putting out a video talking about the top 3 decks that you can build exclusively from the new player experience to help you grind your way into more resources in Standard. But this year, a few things are different. This time around, I am only going to be talking about the number 1 deck that I'm seeing so far, and we may be able to address some more a little later on. But hey, before we get into all that, I wanted to take just a moment to thank my community for helping the Stronghold reach a bit of a long-term goal here. 1,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. Definitely a tremendous thing. Thank you for all the views, all the subs, all the likes, all the comments, and just generally being a very supportive community. It means so much more than you'll ever know. And hey, what do you do when you reach a goal? You set a new one. So moving forward, my main talking point goal is going to be to reach just 50 followers over on Twitch. And frankly, we're already about halfway there, so this one should be really, really easy. If you're not already following me on Twitch, please consider doing so. And that always gives you kind of a sneak peek of some of the live play content, things like that. And of course, the support continues to help the community grow. And I'll be thinking up a giveaway to do once we get there. Probably not a whole account this time around, but hey, that's okay. Now, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, right. As I mentioned in the intro, there are some differences this year that, well, frankly, are affecting this video. The first of which is the fact that a lot of people, myself included, have not received all of the new player experience decks for 2024. As you can see here, I've just got the one here. That has made evaluation and whatnot far more difficult because I haven't really been able to play with the decks outside of the starter event going on, and then you can't really rearrange the decks or play with some different builds or adjustments. You have to play it as is. So while I definitely have some opinions forming about some of the best and worst decks, there's probably 4, 5, 6 decks here that I don't have a fully fleshed out opinion on yet. And as such, I'm really left to talk about those very best. One of which I do think is High Flying Valor. I think it is one of the probably top 3 decks straight out of the box, so to speak. I don't think there's a lot of pathways to upgrade that are necessary or maybe make sense as the Azorius deck, but there's certainly going to be some things going on there. The other issue, of course, if we open up this deck, new for the 2024 season, is we have Alchemy cards going on in these decks. So these decks out of the box are not playable in Standard, so you really have to kind of play around with these lists a little bit and mix and match in order to have a day 1 playable deck. And well, that is a difficult thing, particularly for new players. So where I would normally be doing a video about the top 3 starter decks for Standard players at this point in the season, this time around, I'm only going to talk about one that is a clear-cut winner here that I think, unless something really surprises me, is going to be the best day 1 deck. Sadly, it is not the blue or white, but rather it is, sorry, seeing the difficulty here of having to pull this up. If we go into rank and grab these starter deck duels, I really think the best Head and Shoulders day 1 deck for Standard is going to be the green and white Growing Hope, a deck that I lovingly refer to as Be My +1. And this is 99% of the way there, right out of the box. Obviously, Venelish Knight, and I believe there was one other card here that had to be cut. Yeah, there we go. Sylvan Smite is, I think, the only other cut that we need to cut out there. But we'll talk more about the adjustments here. So let's take a few minutes and go through this standard version of the +1/+1 counters deck. As you can see, everything on the left-hand side of the land is from the original deck, minus the Alchemy only cards that we trimmed away. Everything on the right is basically the cards that we have added in from other portions of the new player experience. And unfortunately, you can tell here just how much of this deck I'm actually missing on this account because I haven't received my new player experience. I have 2 non-land cards that I can run here, and only those 2 come from the single deck that I did actually receive. But more to the point, the reason this deck is so good is it's highly synergistic as it sits and allows for us to bring in some of the best cards from the other green decks. Mostly Land of War Loam Speaker at rare. Tribute to the World Tree just fits so well into the +1 counters concept on this. I was a little surprised this wasn't in the base version of this deck, but my guess is it probably has something to do with the triple green, as well as maybe some mana curve issues. And honestly, once we get a little bit more testing done on this might not make the cut for those exact reasons, but I do think it is a great way to start day one. Also, the Saruk and Goreclaw from, I believe it's the red-green starter, is just very nice. Again, it fits into the +1/+1 counters, giving haste, giving trample, all kinds of good stuff here. It might be a bit win more, and this might be a card that we cut for something that's a little bit more synergistic, like maybe additional copies of Botanical Brawler. But for day one, I think it's a very good inclusion. Also, Cosmic Hunger gives you a very nice fight spell in Standard. And, well, that's the kind of thing that we're looking for in this deck because our creatures are going to get big enough that they can double up as removal. All in all, the mana base is about the same. The baseline on it was 25 lands. I've actually cut it down to 23. That might be a little bit tight. Excuse me, I have cut this down to 22, pardon me. That might be a little tight. We might need to go back up to 23, possibly even 24. But I think as we get access to more and more cards like Botanical Brawler that are going to lower our curve, I think ultimately this is more in line with what we want than the 25 land base. I've also cut a couple of the tempo lands. This deck as it sits is not really interested in domain, so it didn't need a full 4-of playset of the domain tempo common land, especially when it was already running 4 copies of Blossoming Sands. And since the gain lands do allow you to gain life, this is a more ideal choice for us. Of course, things like the Razor Birch Thicket, as you add more of these to your collection by drafting and opening packs, etc., etc. Certainly, there's no reason to only run one of these once you have more. And certainly some of the other rare dual lands are going to be worth considering, especially those that have the option of coming into play untapped, even if that is situationally. All right, and to wrap up here to talk about some of the other decks here that I have some initial impressions on. I think, sadly, Rebel Armory is pretty unplayable and not really giving a good pathway to upgrade and make it good. I think this is one of those decks that's going to require pretty much a full rebuild to go with more of a Boros go wide token strategy. And sadly, not much of what you were given here is actually going to be useful in that respect. Similarly, the blue-green Sylvan Wisdom is really unplayable outside of Alchemy, and I'm not sure that there's really a Simic deck, at least based on last year's cards, that's really viable and worth building, but we will reevaluate that come fall. The white-black Legions of Pyrexia deck, I think this is one of those decks that is at its best in Alchemy. Particularly some of the uncommons in this deck are really quite strong, and I think that's where we want to be playing this deck. The other kind of strong impression that I've been able to form so far is with the black-green Savage Scavengers deck. Frankly, it's a little bit of a mess here, but I do think it's salvageable, and it's one that I'm looking forward to playing around with once I have access to some of the other cards from the new player experience, see if maybe there's a way to rebuild this so it is more viable on day one. Of course, the red-green deck is usually pretty good, and the blue-red deck gives you a lot of pathways, either to mono-blue or mono-red, but we'll have to kind of play with that a bit more once, like I said, we get access to the full new player experience library, and right now I just haven't been able to get a good feel for those decks. And folks, before you go, make sure you've subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on a thing. Because I know I can't change the Magic economy all by myself, but I think we can.